of the Solution Extension or SolEx Expo that's been running all day today. That consists of a whole number of OpenText Solution Extension partners. And this one, as you can see, is being run by myself, Chris Clark, Sales Director of Cad-Capture. And what we're looking to do today is give you an overview of our solution asset-centric navigation. The session is being recorded, and please feel free to ask questions as we go along. If you want to do it via the chat, you can do that. One of my colleagues will be monitoring that. If appropriate, then she can interject, or you can if you wish, whilst I'm presenting, or we can take them at the end and address them then. Okay, so very brief agenda. Quickly go through an introduction of Cad-Capture, give you an idea of who we are and what we do. Then give a short industry overview and seeing what we find in terms of the marketplace today. A brief overview and introduction to the asset-centric or asset navigation solution. Then a live demo. So I'm not going to do too much preamble and really give you an idea to see this, a chance to see the software and see it firsthand and how end users would experience the system. Then I'll give you a more detailed overview of the system itself, and then we'll close with some questions. And I don't plan on taking more than half an hour of your time, unless questions go on, which I'm happy to do if that's the case. Okay, so starting with a brief introduction of Cad-Capture. So we're based in the northwest of England. Our offices are in a place called Blackburn. And I'm based on the coast just near there in a city called Liverpool. Cad-Capture have been OpenText partners with OpenText for 16 years, or in excess of 16 years now. We've specialized in engineering since we first formed, and that was over 30 years ago. Starting off in the large format scanning side of things in CAD conversion, but over recent years, the last 10 to 15 years, we really focused on actually utilizing the information once it's been captured in the electronic domain. And today, the focus is on our asset navigation solution, which is delivered by the AIM suite, Asset Information Management Suite. And hopefully it'll be of interest to you and you'll find some value that perhaps we can talk about later on. Okay, so starting off with the industry itself, we work around the globe and across industry, focusing on asset-intensive industries. So you can see here some of the sorts of organizations and industries that we work in. We have power generation clients over in Asia Pacific, the UK, North America. A lot of oil and gas clients, that is our heritage. We've really started out 30 years ago working in oil and gas, and then have moved our solutions to a more broader user base. Again, in utilities, renewable energy, both in Asia Pacific and in the UK. Then construction, manufacturing, and more recently we've started work deploying our system at a gold mine, which is very interesting, and I wish I could go and visit, but I'm not allowed. Anyway, what we're seeing in these industries are very common. The threads are really that valuable data is often locked away in the drawings and documents or in siloed systems. And this inability to access information effectively means efficiency of the general organization can be impacted, with lots of time wasted looking for accurate data and documentation. This leads to the critical access of critical content in a poor time frame. So time to data is often very important, and when that is impacted, that can have knock-on consequences, particularly in terms of compliance. Again, the regulations are very often there for a good reason in terms of making sure you can access the correct information in the right time frame. And if that time to data is poor, then that often means that you're not able to comply effectively. And that generally is an indication that safety has been impacted, particularly where complex processes are concerned. Again, all of this can often mean that general quality standards can be difficult to maintain and meet. And the irony of all of this is that very often the enterprise-wide applications that are used to try and standardize systems, standardize approaches for these sort of challenges are very often poorly picked up and have slow regional adoption, which really just exacerbates the above problems rather than solving them, which is what they're often intended to do. So what we have, as I mentioned before, is the asset navigation solution. and that is essentially been created to help address those very issues. And we do this by focusing firstly around the actual asset itself, the piece of equipment or the ID tag. And this means that you could then have the ability to access that information and related information within the same repository very effectively. Or you can also access other systems more readily because of the synergy between the asset and the commonality of the data within the asset tag, and also the ability to cross-reference that with other system data. And then finally, being able to actually use that information via a sort of single user interface, very often from a graphical point of view on a drawing, in a PNID, for example, to then drill down, navigate across and traverse to the right information in a far more fast and efficient way. Within the OpenText infrastructure, which is very important to our scenario, we start off with the main OpenText content management systems of either Content Suite, and we also support the XECM for Engineering solution, or Documentum, again along with the Asset Operations solution. So if users are either looking to acquire that for the first time or already have that foundation layer, when Cad-Capture and the asset navigation is introduced, firstly, we can start with the ability to extract tags and validate them automatically. And this gives rise to the ability of something we call IDV, which is inbound drawing verification. This means that third-party drawings and information that is submitted can actually be verified at point of receipt, rather than waiting until they're actually being utilized on a project, and all of a sudden they're on the critical path. And then if the things are found that are inaccurate or missing from those very drawings, then there are cost overruns and project delays whilst that is remedied, whether it's by the engineers actually improving and correcting the drawings themselves, or sending it back to the third parties for them to be corrected. When we've extracted that information, we can also create a tag database, and this means you have the visibility of tags per drawing and drawings per tag, thus unlocking the content within the drawings and giving you access to the value that has already been in your drawings and very often is not accessible. And this can be very powerful in terms of making sure that you can find information firstly, and then find the related information, documentation, and system information as needed. And the culmination of the asset navigation solution is taking that database and making it accessible from the managed environment with a standardized user interface. So this can be done by the OpenText multi-format viewing solution. And this means that you can then hotspot, drill down, navigate to all of the information that you need directly from a drawing or a document. Okay, so that was a very quick introduction to the solution itself. And now I'm going to see if I can get to the live demo and give you a brief overview of that in use. So here we have the OpenText Smart User Interface, Smart UI. This is running on a content server or Content Suite system, but it could equally be a Documentum system. So here we have on the right-hand side, I'm going to open up a drawing, and that opens up in the multi-format viewer of Brava. Now, Brava as a multi-format viewer, for those who aren't familiar, is basically gives you all of the capabilities that you would get from a native CAD application without the ability to actually alter or change the underlying drawing. Again, so it means it's a much more cost-effective way of people accessing native CAD information and multiple different document formats without having to use or invest in expensive CAD tools where they're not needed. So, but on the left-hand side, we don't take anything away from the Brava system, but we do add the HotSpots menu items here. And I shall talk you through those now. But starting off very quickly, I'll show you that we can immediately turn on all the hotspots, and all of the different colored items that come on represent different types of tag. So we have, I'll turn this off and on again, just so we can see. So the blue represent pieces of equipment, the pink instrumentation, the green are lines, and if we go along, the yellow are continuation tags. All of this is configurable, and you can have as many or as few different asset types and tag types as you wish. But what we can do before we actually start navigating around multiple systems and getting to related information, we can also navigate around the drawing itself. So, P&IDs in this instance, and generally schematics and operational documents can often be very complicated and have a lot of asset information on them. In this case, we have 93 tags and 93 hotspots identified. So just to find information on that drawing alone can be quite time consuming. So what we can do is here, you can go down the filter list and you can just click on any of the tags and they'll take you straight into the tag in question. This is because when we identify the tag, we categorize it, validate it, and activate it. We also take the coordinates, which means that you can know where they are on the page as well. We also do things like take into account abbreviation. So here you have the BUH 100C/D. Rather than writing 2 instances of that, you've got a summary at the top. And so, you have the same instance for both 100D and 100C, but then you have the individual representations of each of those assets as well. So that's a very fast, efficient way of being able to navigate around the drawing itself. I happen to know what I'm looking for. I may have done this a couple of times. So I start typing in and you can see the list filters down. And so I'll click on that and say, okay, I'm looking for this pump and there are 2 instances of it on the drawing. So I can immediately locate those 2 and decide which one I want to look at. So from there, I can then say, okay, now I want to understand what information, what documentation is related to this pump. If I've been given a task that involves maintaining perhaps this pump, then I'm going to need to know what documentation relates to it and what other system information is available. So to do that, again, to give fast, secure access to that information, we simply click on the tag itself, and immediately you get access to any related documents to that pump. So this is a pre-qualified set of search results on the basis of anything that contains that asset tag or anything that's related to it. In this case, you've also got the motor that's associated to the pump. So you've got the data sheet for the pump and you've also got the data sheet for the motor. So we'll quickly click on the pump data sheet. This is a PDF, so this is also something that we're able to activate and show the hotspots. And you also have got a tag up here as well. So I can then go on the related documents and go back where I came from, back to the same drawing. I can then, couldn't get the right menu item. I go again, and the other documents that we have, so we have the motor, we have details drawing, and all of these are related, so you can navigate through all of these documents and drawings, and you also have the ability to navigate back to them as well, because we have what we call hotspots history, and this keeps a breadcrumb trail of all of the documents and drawings that you visit during a session. This is ideal for if you get to a lunch break or end of shift, and you want to make sure you know where you were and start where you finished up. Then you can save that and access it later on. But there are also more powerful applications for that, so I'll show you that in a second. So, but back to the pump, and we have a right-click menu as well as the related documents that we're just showing you. You also have a number of other menu items that are configured here. Again, the right-click menu is configurable, so you can put as many or as few different items there as you wish, and you can also have different right-click menus depending on the actual nature of the tag. So here you've only got 2, instrument dashboard and related documents for instrumentation, whereas for equipment, generally there are more systems that you might want to access. So you can start off by perhaps an example of some information that you generally want to be able to people to access. All of this is available on mobile devices as well. So if somebody were going out on plant, for instance, and there's some sort of safety information that they would need to interrogate, this is just an example of some information that could be held within the repository and people can access readily straight from the UI. We can then go and show some other things. So we've got an equipment dashboard. So this is to access allied systems with related information to the pump. So if you click on that, in this case, we've got it set up. So there's some SAP information on the equipment dashboard. So effectively, instead of having to go into SAP, you can pull information from there and surface it to the people using the drawing so they can use that and consume it and then carry on with the activity as needed. But for those of you using OpenText XECM for SAP framework, excuse me, you also have the option of going to the business workspace. This is very useful because this means you can then go directly to the business workspace, which gives you the information from SAP Surface within the OpenText environment. So you've got the equipment data for the pump here. You've also got more detailed information on the associated equipment as well. So you've got the motor, electric pump motor, and the motor as well there. Okay, and that is very powerful in itself because that means that you get the ability to really complete the loop in terms of the information from the drawing being readily available from SAP and the SAP information being readily available from the drawing. Now, what we often see people needing to do is to navigate around a drawing, go from document to document, drawing to drawing, and a good way of illustrating this is the use of continuation tags. So for those of you who don't know, a continuation tag is essentially a tag that is a pointer. So if we're looking here, wanted to walk this line, there's a term that's often used. We're on drawing 46D here, and this is saying, well, if you want to carry on this line and find out what else happens further upstream, then you need to click on, or you need to visit this drawing 46E. With HotSpots and asset navigation, all you need to do is click on that, and it automatically goes and searches for that document or drawing. Now, in this case, because it's a one-to-one relationship, it opens it up immediately. There were more than one, it would give you a selection. And it also gives you the entry point. So you can see 46D is highlighted here. So that means you've got the visibility of where you came from, and then you could sort of further navigate across the drawing and perhaps go to another continuation tag and walk the line. And very often this is something that can take up a lot of time for engineers, where they need to traverse across multiple drawings before they even get to the drawing that they need to work on and carry out their activity. In this instance, I'll click on the tag that we came from, so we'll go back there, and then what I'll do, I'll go, oh, nope, I didn't mean to do that. And across. No, I didn't want to do that either. That's what I meant to do. And so here you see we've got another tag, so I'll go and visit 46C. So what you see here is a native CAD file, so a DWG file. But what we can also do, as you've seen already, we can also work with searchable PDFs. But very often, you know, one of the issues that we see with people, particularly we work with refineries and power generation plants and mining organizations, which have, you know, multiple decades worth of legacy information. And we can also activate that as well. So you don't have to leave, you know, old, perhaps not searchable, but nonetheless very important documents behind. You can bring them with you. You can hotspot those as well. And here you can see that some of the tags have been hotspotted. Generally, we advise a sort of more selective approach as to, you know, what are the main tags that are needed. But you can see here that something where you can't OCR it, there is no ability to read this because the quality is too poor. It could even be a hand-drawn drawing that's been scanned in, or something that's been printed out and rescanned multiple times, as you can see here. What we can still do is we can then, we've got the hotspots, and then we can navigate back to other information, in this case, back to the same CAD file. Okay, so that was a sort of quick whistle-stop tour of the hotspot solution. And one thing that I haven't shown yet, so let's go back onto here, is the fact that we can also show other information as well. So I've shown you a sort of a poor quality PDF, but also, you know, when you have got machine generated or very good quality PDFs, then you can get exactly the same experience that you had with the native CAD file. So you've got the same ability to right-click, can use continuation tags and navigate to all the other information as required. Okay, so I shall now go back to the presentation and just give you a bit more of an overview of actually how we've done, you know, what we've shown, how the system works and what it involves. Okay, so firstly, once the asset information is extracted, and again, we categorize it and validate it, and it's important that that is shown to deliver the value it can, which means that not only do we validate it against what it should be, but we also give the ability to correct it. So sometimes people will use the wrong naming convention, or if it's a PDF, the OCR results will be inaccurate. So as part of our capture and extraction process, we can build in a rule that will allow us to actually, at the metadata level, we'll save the name of the tag as it should be, rather than as it necessarily is if it's inaccurate. And that means you can standardize and correlate information in other systems very readily. And what you can see here is once we've taken that information you can surface it in the metadata of the content management system, which means you can then find that document and drawing by the tag information itself and vice versa. And as part of this process, as you probably gathered, that then means that you can utilize that information. Once the hotspots are activated, that will give you the ability to search for the information via those very tags. Okay, and again, as you saw in the demonstration, the dynamic link means that you get access to the drawings and documents themselves, also the latest version of the drawings and documents. So if a new version of a document comes in or a drawing, then that is updated. Then when you access it via one of the hotspots, it will take you to the latest version. You can access the business workspace as part of the XCCM framework, as I showed, but also you can access other systems such as Maximo, other content management systems, or other drawing management systems. So you can start to standardize and break down those silos of information, and you can break down the barriers between the structured and unstructured data to give a more considered and a more fluent and fluid access to the information that you need. And what we say is that asset-centric navigation, it works how engineers think. They don't want to be thinking about 20 plus different systems that they have to interact with. What they need to think about are the pieces of equipment, the pieces of instrumentation, the assets that are involved in their periodic maintenance, and what they can do with it. And one thing that has just occurred to me that I didn't show you on the demonstration, so I'm going to come out of this very quickly because it was very poor of me that I didn't show you on this demonstration. I mentioned that I'd go back to the hotspots, the history. So one of the things that you can do here, I showed you before that the breadcrumb trail was being built as we went from drawing to drawing and via the hotspots. All the white references are the different hotspots that we clicked on, and the gold are the drawings and documents that we visited. I mentioned you can save it. Okay, so you can go in there and save a system, save the information for yourself, but also others can access that as well because it can be generally accessed, and that can be very useful because if you then want to carry out a similar task, so if it's periodic maintenance, for instance, if this is a quarterly maintenance program, then I can go back and say, rather than trying to go through and navigate to all those drawings and documents I need, I can say, okay, the last time perhaps I carried out this task or somebody else carried out this task, what drawings and documents were utilized? And that gives you immediate access to all of those drawings and documents. And what you can also do, if you're going out on plant without connectivity, then you can zip and download those. So this means that you can take those drawings and documents and then utilize them outside of the system should you need to. As I mentioned before, there is the ability to use this in a mobile arena with tablets and mobile phones, but sometimes the connectivity isn't there, so you might want to load these up to a separate piece of equipment. Okay, sorry for jumping around there, but I knew there's something I forgot. I just couldn't remember what it was. Okay, so just very quickly going into some more of the details in terms of the asset navigation side of things and what it can deliver. I mentioned it can reduce project costs and the delays that are caused very often by the information needing to be redone once it gets onto the critical path. It also gives you the ability to keep the data scrape, which is what very often people use in this sort of scenario. We're doing that constantly. So every time a new version of a drawing or a new document is introduced, the information is taken off. So all of that information is kept up to date and managed ongoing, rather than the traditional data scrape, which is really a snapshot in time, and people really can only use that for a certain length of time before it becomes out of date, and their confidence in it is no longer significant enough for it really to be of any real use. Improved master data governance is another benefit that asset navigation delivers, and this means that we can either compare against the master data that already exists, we can help populate that information. So we're either taking from a bottom-up perspective, we're telling you what information is in the drawings, and you can compare that with what's already in the master system. But where it doesn't exist, we can help populate that. And that can be very useful, particularly in terms of minimizing downtime, helping to make sure you have the right information about all of the assets and information in use. Perhaps from a maintenance, repair and operations point of view, if you want to keep spare parts and have a global access and view of where suitable spare parts are and how they can be accessed and how you can save time to make sure you maintain and maximize the uptime of your system. Again, the data governance that we can help improve and deliver can be very useful there. And generally, as the title of the webinar this evening says, we can deliver fast search and retrieval in a secure manner and give you access to critical content, which means that you can find information far more readily. Okay, so just very quickly, my skipping around has taken me over the half hour, but very quickly, the asset information management system, delivers asset navigation with the ability to identify asset tags on a document and drawing, to correct the asset tags references at the metadata level, where they've either been entered incorrectly or the OCR result is giving a false reading. You can validate that information against the master data to ensure consistency across multiple systems. You can utilize that tag information to find that information more readily within the content management system. And then finally, you can activate that asset tag as a hotspot in the drawings and PDFs. Will give you automatic dynamic links to other systems. No changes to the drawing are necessary, and nothing needs to be done on the individual drawing. All of the rules, the pattern matching, the regular expressions that we use to capture the information in the drawings, that's all done centrally. So you can do tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of drawings and documents, and very often it's sort of the latter number that people tend to talk to us about, in terms of sometimes in excess of hundreds of thousands of drawings and documents, and the system is able to manage all those different scenarios. The benefits it delivers: asset-centric navigation across any of the OpenText content management systems, the dynamic link to other systems such as ERP, health and safety, and asset management. It can capture errors early, reducing project delays and overspend. Increase regulatory compliance and improve safety. It can enhance the experience of the end user, and we've seen it actually improve user adoption drastically. We've even deployed at sites where the same system has been rolled out without the Cad-Capture asset navigation solution, and it failed. And it actually subsequently has been rolled out using the hotspots and the asset navigation, and that has really been the carrot and winning the hearts and minds of the end users. They see the value and the benefits that it delivers, and they're more ready to accept and take on the system. And finally, delivering fast, intuitive document retrieval and access to information with no changes to the drawings necessary. Okay, so that was a quick run through of asset navigation, and again, hope you've found some value and interest in what I've had to say. I'm very happy to take any questions now. So, does anybody have anything, or Kim, has anything come across the chat? Because I can't see the chat at the moment, I'm afraid.
Yes, so we have been sent some directly. The first one being, how difficult is it to implement the AIM suite?
Right. Well, actually, it can be very easy. Generally, we'd look at doing a phased approach, because very often people sort of look at the hotspots as the end user experience and say, okay, we'll do that later on. But the extraction process actually can add a lot of value upstream and actually help with migration processes as well. So particularly when you're adopting a new system, and you're looking to populate that with the drawings and documents, then we can help with that process as well, perhaps identifying document types and increasing the quality and the volume of the metadata that's going in as part of the migration itself. So it can be done very simply and very effectively, and particularly in a phased approach is generally what we've seen in terms of focusing on the data first, unlocking that, and then utilizing that to empower the end users with the hotspots. Hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, we have another one here. It says, what if there are large numbers of drawings? Will the system allow for this?
Okay, yes, well, I think as I mentioned earlier, definitely large numbers of drawings and documents are generally the case. That's what we see day in, day out. And our system has an auto-accept approach, which is something that means that you can take those large volumes of documents and drawings, process them in an efficient manner, and activate them and get them utilized more readily in a fast, efficient way. So absolutely, we can take large volumes and help with those particularly.
Okay, there's another question here. So how do you create the links to other systems?
Right, so in terms of the links to other systems, So that really is taking the standardized approach in terms of we unlock the content within the drawing, and then we're really mapping it to the database level to the information that's held in other systems. So it's purely a hyperlink unless the XCCM framework is being used. The equipment dashboard that I showed you, that is really sort of saying, okay, we've taken the information off the drawing and we can now make that accessible. So we can go and do an automated search in that other system and bring back the information that is needed, either in a separate pane, or sometimes it actually can allow to jump from the drawing and into and open the other system so they can use that directly.
Okay, we have another question here. It says, we saw drawings PDF. Can tags be recognized in Microsoft Word documents and in content server attributes?
Content server attributes, yes. Microsoft Word isn't one of the formats that we work with at the moment. We're looking to access those or activate those on our roadmap. But what we do for current clients is generally Word documents can be rendered to PDF, and then they can be consumed and activated as hotspotted documents. So that's the method that we take at the moment. But absolutely, categories and attributes within content server, definitely we can pick that information up and populate them as well, which is generally the more common approach. We're taking the information from the drawing and making it accessible through the cats and apps to allow them to be searchable within the content suite environment.
Okay, there's another question. What about legacy drawings? Can you provide a solution for this?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Yes, I'm hoping I showed the legacy drawing as part of the session, but yeah, we have a recent additional feature that we've added, which is the add-on or manual hotspots. And that means that where it isn't possible to electronically identify any of the information in a drawing or a document, you can still add the hotspots on. And that means that you can then activate the tags and you can take those documents and drawings with you rather than having to have them dealt with separately, as opposed to your more recent documents and drawings, and certainly any of the drawings and documents that you access moving forwards. So yeah, we can help with legacy drawings as well and make sure that you get the same sort of value without the need to actually recreate those documents or drawings or redraw them, which again is very often just not possible because it's too time consuming and too expensive. So absolutely, we can help with legacy drawings as well.
Okay, and there's another question. What are the next steps?
Okay, well, again, as you can see, my contact details on the screen. I'm happy to help, so please feel free to reach out to me. But also, if you're either a current OpenText customer or you're someone who's looking at acquiring some of the OpenText systems, you can actually access our services and our software via your OpenText account executive as well. We're on the OpenText price list, so everything you've seen today, you can purchase direct from OpenText. We work very closely with them, and generally the MO that we worked with is once we've spoken to a client and given them sort of an initial generic overview, for a deeper dive, we'll very often take some of their drawings and documents and provide a bespoke demonstration just to show them what their drawings would look like and their documents would look like in the asset navigation system. So again, hopefully there's a few avenues there, and feel free to reach out. I'd love to speak to you, and I'm sure your OpenText AE would too.
Okay, we've got another question, and it's a follow-up question to the one about the Microsoft Word documents. So this one says, Content Server knows the concept of PDF renditions of Word documents. Can these be used?
The honest answer, I don't know. So I will have to go and find that out. I'm afraid. I'm trying to think if any of my colleagues are online who would know that, and I don't think there are. So perhaps if we could take the details of the person who's asked that question, then I could get back to them. I'd like to think so, but I don't know for sure. So I'd have to check that with one of my technical colleagues. So apologies for not giving you a straight answer on that one.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. I'll keep an eye on the chat though. Okay.
Well, if anybody would like to shout out before we finish up, if they've got any more questions, or but if that's not the case, then I'll thank you all for spending slightly longer than I promised, but hopefully it was worthwhile. Appreciate you taking the time to join our session today. Again, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help, and we're eager to do so. Again, there is thank you for your time, as I say, and there is one more session in the Solution Extension Expo. So you can see this will start in 20 minutes. So if you're not already registered for that, please go to the otsolex.com /SolEx Expo. Try saying that 3 times after you've had a beer. But otherwise, thank you everyone for your time, and I'll draw things to a close because it doesn't look like there are any further questions. Okay, right. Thank you everyone.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Goodbye now.
Bye.